Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's major playoff time. The games start tomorrow, and I wasn't sure what to do for my content, because waiting till Friday, when everyone's going to be live streaming, we're all going to be watching the games, I probably wouldn't have had anything interesting to add. So what I'm going to do is pre-playoffs, I'm going to set the standard, set the expectation for every single player. I'm going to go through, make a tier list of all the individuals playing in these playoffs and lay out exactly what I think they are as far as their reputation, as far as their abilities, as far as who they are as a player right now. I'm also going to probably have a little chat about who needs to prove what. You know, who's coming into this with something to prove, something to show to us, inspire some belief in us. But let's get right into it. We're going to start with the least interesting team, and we're going to work our way through, all the way through to the most, I think, confusing team or difficult teams to judge. But obviously, that means we're starting off with, well, no offense to Vitality. They're very good, but they're not that interesting to talk about. They are overdone as far as content. We know exactly what to expect from every player. So let's begin with our easy superstar. ZywOo has been, whilst not AWPing as directly or as explicitly as we're used to, he's been amazing no matter what he's tried to do. The fragging numbers haven't been as insane as some other players, but they have been elite, superstar, without contest. And I still have him as my number one player just because of his ability to fill in every single role, every single aspect. It's quite rare that we see a player who is the superstar, demands all the attention, gets all the resources if he wants them, at times anchor a bomb site with a rifle. Just doesn't really happen very often. He's been doing it with surprising frequency, and of course, hitting the shots, holding the sights, being a lead at everything he tries. We're then going to put his 2-star riflers beneath him. FlameZ and Rops. Obviously, Rops, I think we're going to try to order these players within their tiers as well. So I'm going to put Rops above FlameZ. Rops has been the game changer for Vitality as far as the mentality, as far as exactly how they run their team, like the balance of roles. There's just been so perfect with Rops. And he himself has been playing some of his best CS. The master of the micro really has been back. FlameZ has been very good. He has had more opportunity to really showcase his abilities on this team since the removal of Spinks, but he hasn't quite delivered on the same level as a player like Rops. The part that's actually somewhat confusing is, do I actually have a category just for Rops above a player like FlameZ? I don't think so. I think FlameZ deserves to be in the same category just overall because of the other players that are going to fit into Star really not being able to outproduce him. Next, now you've seen the tiers. We have IGL and we have Role God. Now, Role God is for a player in any role, but who outperforms their role. So IGL has created an excuse. Basically, if you're an IGL, you lead your team, you're not awful. You're just not going to put up the fragging numbers. And also, there's less burden on you to put up those fragging numbers. Plus, you have all those distractions. It's not the same. So a player that outperforms the IGL role will end up in Role God. And that's where Apex goes. Alongside Mezzy, I do think Apex deserves a step above Mezzy, because not only is he the best IGL in terms of putting up fragging impact, like he plays certain roles on CT side that are highly impactful and then delivers, but he's also probably the best IGL right now. I think that's hard to debate. He puts up great flash assist numbers. He calls the best style for his team. He gets everyone into winning positions over and over again, and he's sacrificial, and he puts up the numbers. Crazy. Mezzy, always undervalued to a certain extent, really has the mechanics of a far stronger player, but sacrifices, puts up his numbers. There we go. That's Vitality sorted. Up next, and this is probably where there's going to be some controversy, but we're talking about mousesports. Mousesports, there isn't a superstar player on this team. Not currently. Spinks has shown flashes. Torshi, if the game was only CT-sided, probably would be. But otherwise, it's only Star. So we're going to start with those two guys who definitely deserve to be up in Star right now. Probably in terms of ordering, I'd have to put Spinks above his compatriot FlameZ. He's been the better player this year in terms of putting up the big numbers, having those huge performances. He has struggled a little bit to maintain his numbers in playoffs, as has everyone in Mouse. I mean, part of that is bad luck. They run into Vitality more often than almost anyone, it seems. And whilst they do sometimes put up a fight, it's often very close, scrappy games where they're losing big but winning close and keeping the scorelines tight overall on the series, just not being able to deliver. The latest 3-0 loss, of course, compounding the rating issues. So yeah, I have Spinks, I have Torshi in the Star, and then the real question mark when you're looking at Mouse is, where do I put Xerxan? I feel like for this year, he has been more of a star. He has been delivering. He has been impactful. I'm going to put him in that category. We're going to create this trio of Israeli riflers. This is the problem. These guys are so talented. And when you talk about, a lot of the time you see on the forums, like the Israeli super team, who can we put in the Israeli super team? You're always missing a couple roles, but you're not missing rifle firepower. That's where they go. As far as Jimfat, last year, he's in Role God or Star, depending on which season, because I think one half the year he was a Star, one half the year he was a Role God. Currently, he kind of feels like he should be in mid. That might be controversial. I'm not sure. But for me, he has been a bit mid this year. Not really throwing out those sorts of numbers we saw last year. But I think a part of that is also having to leave space for Spinks. Like, Spinks is going to frag in a couple places in the map where Yimfat would have previously. He might have found a couple trade kills that now Spinks is taking up. It's just a shift in the way the team plays, and I think Yimfat's taken a bit of a back step. I don't want to put him in awful. I don't think he's been that bad. I know some people have been really down on his form, but that's just relative to what he set up as his standard last season. Well, last year. Finally, the debate with Brolan. Does he go in mid or IGL? Well, I can't really find it in me to put him in mid because he's not really putting up those kind of numbers. His fragging has been IGL tier. He's done a lot of good things in terms of his mid-rounding, in terms of being sacrificial, like switching up his style so that he's now entering a lot, taking a lot of deaths and being traded out. But I don't think he's outperforming his roles. I'm going to put him in IGL. The first IGL to go into IGL. Don't worry, there's plenty more coming. Up next, I'm going to do Pain. I think Pain has some interesting choices in here. The first one being, I think NQZ, just make sure I can recognize them properly. Yeah. NQZ is going into Star. And honestly, with the limited sample size we have from him, he can't go above some of these guys, but man, has he looked dangerously sharp now that Pain are actually rolling and flowing. Now, the rest of the team is where things are a little more confusing. I am going to have a tough time placing their rifle core, the Star duo and the IGL. But unfortunately for me, Snow has to go into Awful. It's been a really rough run. Yeah, these pictures are a bit small. I'm trying to figure out if I'm talking about the right person. But that is Snow. He's just not been good enough this year. It's a shame. We're all looking forward to him. He's shown us some top-end stuff, some upside that's really explosive, really impactful, really sharp aim. But for me right now, the numbers aren't there. He's making some sloppy decisions. He's taking some cheap deaths. I can't put him any higher. I think at the bottom end of Star would be where most people want to put DGT or Davideus or both. For now, I can't do that. Now, unfortunately, as I said, I can't put both, but I think DGT is going to creep just into the bottom end of Star. He might end up being the lowest one on here. Just right at the bottom of Star. We'll see how everyone else fills out, because he's had some really strong performances at this major run. Now, overall, across the course of his tenure on this team, it's not been brilliant. The team struggled to get things going, gluing, flowing. But at the major, clearly, they figured out their stuff, their pace, their playmaking, their everything has been working a little better. The calling with Vincere, he's finally figuring out how to use his pieces. This has been a much better showing. DGT deserves to actually go just into Star. Davideus, though, he kind of has to go into mid. I don't think he's outperforming his roles. He's playing fine, and he's had a decent major as well. Not quite a role god yet. We'll see how that develops. Vincere, finally, his fragging over the course of the duration of DGT's tenure has been a bit better than what an IGL typically is expected to put up. Now, however, he doesn't play quite as sacrificially as other IGLs do. There is a certain playmaking aspect that relies on him. He does try to put himself in the forefront of that sort of, not just making the decision, but also being the initiator, being the man who takes that burden and makes the play. So his frags should be slightly elevated compared to other IGLs, and he's not actually that much better. He's just around where you expect an IGL tier player to play. So I actually think he's going to go into IGL for this. Above Brolan, if we could actually swap them. There we go. I think he's been a better individual than Brolan. Not necessarily a better caller, but I think that's going to earn him a slight edge just for this tier list. Up next, I think FaZe Clan need addressing, because it's quite difficult to correctly place everyone on this team. I think Frozen is probably the easiest. I think he's been one of the best riflers this year. Going to go in Star right below Rops. The untangling of these two has pretty much unlocked both. I think Frozen has a far more, not necessarily active, but far more impactful playstyle. I think adding more aggressive pieces around him gives him that extra second, that extra moment, that where the aggro of the other team is just locked in on one of his teammates, he can find his space, he can find his frags, and really close things down. He's been outstanding. Also, something you'll notice if you're watching the demos, far more attempted 2vx, 3vx situations out of FaZe when you don't have Rops playing the odds and Frozen playing the odds. Late round, someone else is left alive, someone who is more aggressive, is more willing to take that extra peek. All of a sudden, they're finding a lot more late rounds that are playable, and it's been a revelation. Next, Obviously, I'm going to talk about a player who's been a bit disappointing for me. He has a lot of star roles, doesn't quite deliver. I'm going to put towards the top end of mid, Elige. He's been good. He's just been far from great and far from what we expect from a player playing his positions on a team of this caliber. Now, he's not been awful, obviously. He's not been really bad, I think. He's just not delivered to the level we wanted him to. Elige was an absolute god on complexity, putting up huge numbers, and he was set up explicitly for them. That setup has slightly reduced in, not necessarily quality, but especially just the frequency of him being set up, how many players are sacrificing for him. It's not quite as heavy as in complexity, and he has pretty much regressed off the back of it. Now, just off the sort of last sort of segment of games they've played with Simple, you could argue he might edge the bottom of Star, probably slightly above the DGT, but over the course of the entire year, just hasn't been good enough from Elige. I am going to punish him for that. He is going to sit in mid for now. Expect that to change, though, over the course of the, well, next few weeks, probably next month, should this FaZe roster stick together and keep playing the way they've been playing. Up next, a difficult choice. Where do I put Simple? He's not a superstar. He just hasn't had enough superstar level play to justify putting him up there with ZywOo and with potentially someone else or someone else again. Maybe there's two players going up there. He hasn't been quite there. As far as his impact, though, you can put him right there, below Frozen. This major run has been electric. It's been really fun, especially now that Stage 3 started. I mean, Stage 2, he had some really weak series, but Stage 3, outstanding, really impactful play. Deserves a lot of credit for it. He ended the Stage 3 with a rating of like 1.3 something. It brought his major average up to 1.18, or his June, sort of, because that's where the event run happens. And when you combine that with all his other play, he's at like a 1.15. Like, that's really strong. I was saying this on stream. This is almost like prime some pious like year averages. That's impressive for a player who's just coming back, and if he can keep building on that, obviously he'll keep climbing, and he'll be so electric if we get prime Simple in the playoffs of the major, potentially making it to the final to face off with ZywOo, the pretender to his crown as many of us see it. And that'll be fun to watch. For now, still just in Star. Heating up though. Heating up. Rain, I feel like appropriate would be just put him in Role God. Just Role God's fine. Karrigan, IGL, one of the worst in terms of fragging. There was a point, like about a month ago, where FaZe was struggling, really struggling, and the calling wasn't great. The fragging was not really coming through from everyone who wasn't called Frozen, but Karrigan had over 100 ADR in-round wins. He was deciding things single-handedly. He still has that aspect inside him that a lot of other IGLs sort of try to replicate, where you try to make some plays, try to influence the way a round's going. Like, you've seen Karrigan do it before, where he's like pushing Dust 2 mid-doors. He'll make a little play, make an incision into the other team's defense, just to catch a timing, catch some space, catch them unaware, and maybe create a trade opportunity for his teammates. Karrigan was doing that at an insane level, but recently it's just been, the fragging's been bottoming out. Helps that the rest of the team is stepping up just to keep his numbers down, but he has to go towards the bottom of IGL. Next we're going to talk about Na'Vi. There's going to be a lot of very, very harsh placements, I think, on this list, because it's been a rough period for them, hasn't it? Now, most of their players haven't entirely bottomed out in terms of their fragging. It's just relative to roles and setup. They should be doing better. So the first player is going to go into Role God. It is JL. Honestly, just going to put him slightly below Apex, but above some others. He's had a pretty okay year. Like, not bad by any means. I think people are overlooking that. JL has actually been solid. People talk about cuts on Na'Vi, changes to Na'Vi. Unless there's an internal issue with JL, I'm keeping JL. He's been consistent. He's been reliable. And even at the major, I think he's their highest rated player. That's what I want from a player who's not supposed to be my first option, and yet still delivers time and time again. That's a Role God right there. Now, we can argue that maybe Bit can go into this category as well, more towards the bottom end. I'm feeling harsh today. I'm really feeling harsh. I'm going to put Bit, so far this year, just mid. Wonderful almost could make a case for Role God just because of how his AWPing plays out. But I'm going to have to put him on the top end of mid. It's just not been pretty. And then Immer, and it falls into the same category. Like, right there. Just mid. Mid is not that much of a diss. It's clearly Elige is in here, Yimfat's in here. Some role players who play fine, some players who have some star roles who are just not exceeding expectations go in here. And then Alexi B, he can go into IGL for obvious reasons. The fragging numbers just aren't there. He has to be there. Yeah, pretty harsh placements for Na'Vi, but one of the harder teams to judge. really, overall. Because they have a bunch of players who don't explicitly always play as a role player and don't explicitly always get true star treatment. So you kind of have to figure out the balance of how to judge them. And overall, considering they're all rated between 1.07 and 1.10, like 1.11 for the year, you watch them play, there's not that many big breakout fragging performances from any of them. Like, you'll have a map from bit here and there. You'll have JL, like, for a series. And, you know, when you lose and it looks kind of ugly, maybe Wonderful holds his own from his more passive spots and positions, hits the easy shots. When he does that, Na'Vi's game plan looks a little more solid, but overall, it's just a lot of mid. And the only player who I think has the right to not put up star numbers truly on this team is JL. And he actually puts up pretty solid performances time and time again, so he has to be the role god. The rest of the team, yeah, underwhelming. The last month has been weird for Furia. I mean, they made some pretty crazy moves. They've had some actual success with it, and now they've made major playoffs in their first major attempt. It's pretty insane. I'm going to start off with the star on this team. Well, stars, actually. Realistically, I should be fair, stars. Molodoy, I think, for me, is going to go just above NQZ. I've been really impressed with what I've seen. Considering he's so young and so fresh into Tier 1 CS, he has no right putting up the kind of stats he's putting up. This has been a really impressive run from Molodoy. I was not expecting it to be so successful, but they have leaned into doing what made him shine in AmCal in lower tier teams. The other player that is going to be up here is Yekindar. Very limited sample size, that's why these guys can't be higher. When you look at pure rating numbers, things like that, you're going to be like, how is he, you know, here? He should be up there with Exertion, but not really. It's not playing the same matches, let's put it that way. But he has been impressing me. I was not expecting this from Yekindar, and it looks like they're about to make a major semi-final. I mean, they're playing Pain. It's up for grabs. That's incredible. Now, the real question is, where do I put Queserato? Because Queserato is always a bit tougher to judge. He does play some roles, but he does also, you know, get star setup. I think relative to his standards, this year is mid. Relative to the rest of the players in mid, I think he's been better than them, especially recently. He might go into the worst. He might be the... Yeah, it's tough. When I look at guys like DGT, I look at guys like Queserato, I feel like I need a separate position for them. You know? Not mid feels too much of a diss. Star feels too generous. Yeah, into no man's land, because star feels too nice for what Queserato's put up this year. Mid is too much of a diss considering his recent form. I think that's where it has to go. Yuri, for me, has actually been alright. Relative to the positions he's fallen into, I think I can put him at the bottom of Role God, and that's feeling very generous. Obviously, Fallen is in IGL, but as an IGL, if you watched him perform, he had an okay start, so I feel like I put him just above Karrigan. Surprisingly decent on the rifle in terms of the role player aspect, so I'm going to stick him in there. Right, now, we're going to leave Spirit for last. Mongols. Where on earth do we put everyone on the Mongols? Firstly, I think I put Mazinho in Role God pretty high up. I've been really liking what I'm seeing from Mazinho in particular. Time and time again, he's been delivering for them. Now, 9-10 is an awkward one, because he could go into mid quite easily with his numbers, and I think he kind of has to. He's had a couple good events, a couple good showings, but you can't really have him in a different tier to Wonderful in terms of his overall performance. He has higher highs this year, but he also has far lower lows, and I think that gets overlooked sometimes. I'm going to keep him in mid. I don't think that's too harsh. Alongside some of these other players in Role God, I'm actually going to have Blitz. As far as calling and fragging, he does a lot, delivers a lot for his team. He's going to go up there. There's no doubt in my mind that Blitz is one of the most valuable players in terms of what he can bring to a team single-handedly between his individual play and as well his calling. He kind of has to, by definition, therefore, go into Role God. Surpasses the average IGL in terms of on-server fragging impact. That's where he goes. Techno. Sorry, he's still sharp. He still has moments. He still hits shots. But the decision-making has been very poor this year. The times when he's not just playing his supportive roles, when he's, you know, left solo in an area and he has the right to push and he could try and make a play, just gets it wrong time and time again. He has to go in awful. Senzu in star. I think right below Torji feels fair. He's had moments in group stages where he probably surpasses a lot of players ahead of him, but playoffs have let him down time and time again. Let's see if he can bring that around in these playoffs and maybe makes, you know, a competitive series against FaZe. It could go either way if you've seen peak Mongols. Just the last matchup, yeah, it wasn't quite that. It was a good showing from Senzu himself just wasn't a great showing from the team, and they got battered on map 2, and it wasn't even fair. Right, on to Team Spirit, where there is no conversation to be had. Donk is a superstar. You can even, if you swap these two players, I don't even hate you. I think that's a valid take, but I'm not going to have him up there. Now, Shiro, he is so close to entering Club Superstar. Now, I'm going to have him just above Rops in Star. His numbers this year, oh my god, actually insane. Especially his AWPing numbers. They're comparable to Munacy in terms of his, specifically, AWP impact, his fragging with an AWP. He's been that good. He really has. Then we get down to the problem on this team, which is the other 3 players. Now, I kind of feel bad for Zontix. I've made the case time and time again that whilst he isn't mechanically brilliant, and he has a certain ceiling just on himself because he can't always win those duels, he does play pretty smart, and he does play pretty reliably. Like, he does what he's supposed to do time and time again and delivers. It's not flashy, it's not memorable, but he does it. So I'm going to put him in Role God. I think below Mezzy, above Yuri, feels about right. Then Chopper and Magix. Chopper is this close to being an awful because of his fragging. But he is an IGL, so I kind of have to leave him here. And yeah, this has not been a good Magix year. I think he's been better than Techno. I think he's been better than Snow. And the major run could have a lot of you people putting him up here, somewhere in mid. But over the course of the entire year, Magix has been rather disappointing. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but I feel good about this one. Now, you might be mistaken. You might look at the just flat on paper numbers and be like, but Magix's rating is 1.04. What's the problem? I've watched the POVs. I've also looked into the stats that go beyond flat rating. He doesn't do a whole lot. And he only has this rating because the team is winning a lot of rounds. And therefore, in those rounds, most of them are done before he even has a chance to whiff and die. Yeah, Magix has not been a good player this year. Combine that with Chopper's fragging, Zontix is, nothing special, essentially, nature. And you actually have a team that's rather limited in their fragging beyond that one superstar and that one star. This is a team that needs their top 2 pieces set up and needs them to deliver. Now, they have been well set up and they have delivered. But it's not been enough to match a team like Vitality, who can set up their top players, they can deliver, and then they still have more options and still have more go-tos. Team Spirit anchored down by 2 players who, well, just haven't been up to snuff as far as their rifling this year. Maybe they play their roles okay, maybe they're nice guys, maybe they're great for the vibes. They've just not been good enough. But alright, that's the video. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Leave a comment telling me your thoughts on any of these placements. Who have been too harsh to? Who have I been too generous to? I'm sure I'm going to get some comments from people who didn't see me later on adjust and make No Man's Land a thing. Because the eye test on DGT and how he played when the team started playing well and how well he was able to really show off his abilities. It's a different beast compared to the DGT we saw very early on when he made this move. So I'm really putting some faith in him, but also accepting that it's not enough to truly have him as a star right now. So yeah, members get access to more content and certain rights, and that's all for this one. Goodbye.